My son-in-law's voice ripped through the air, sharp enough to slice through the Arizona heat.
Stop taking my car! You're nothing in this house.
I didn't answer him. No argument, no raised tone, just silence. Instead, I turned the ignition, drove off, and headed straight for the dealership. $200,000 later, my Rolls-Royce gleamed like satisfaction itself.
Vengeance dressed in midnight blue.
At the next traffic light, I tapped the horn twice. He happened to glance up, saw me behind the wheel, and the color drained from his face before he fainted dead away. But that was just where it began. Before we go any further, make sure you subscribe to the channel and tell
Us in the comments what time it is where,
you're watching from. The Arizona sun slammed
against the windshield like a
hammer as I steered Roxana's Honda Accord
into the driveway.
July in Scottsdale, air so thick with heat it shimmered, turning steering wheels into brands. I shifted into park, satisfied. Groceries handled, every item crossed off her list, even the coffee she liked, the blue-labeled one she never found herself. Movement in the garage pulled my attention. Earl stepped out, shoulders rigid, jaw tight, the kind of posture that meant trouble.
I hadn't even opened the door when his voice cut through the stillness. You don't get to just take my car. I looked at him, calm.
Roxana said it was fine. I don't care what she said, he snapped, closing the gap between us with long, angry strides.
Stop using my car.
It's mine. Do you hear me?
Mine. The heat rising off the pavement wrapped around us both, trapping the tension.
Curtains twitched across the street. Someone's lawnmower went silent. I could feel eyes on us, neighbors watching the old man get dressed down in public. You're living under our roof.
Eating our food and you still can't respect simple rules, he barked,
his finger jabbing at the air near my chest. You're a burden, that's what you are. The front door creaked open. Roxana stood there, one hand on the frame, her face weary, not shocked.
That part stung most. Dad, please, she whispered, don't provoke him.
You know how he gets, as if I'd done something wrong, as if asking to borrow a car with permission was a crime. My gaze fell to the grocery bags in the back seat, 4 of them.
Paid for with my pension, chosen carefully to fill their kitchen.
Suddenly those bags looked pitiful, proof of how small I'd let myself become. I bent, lifted them out. They felt heavier than they should have, or maybe I was just tired.
Tired of existing like this.
I set them down gently on the driveway, a tiny act of dignity amid humiliation. Earl was still talking, something about respect, about rules, but I no longer heard words. I picked up the bags and walked past both of them. My daughter didn't stop me. My son-in-law didn't look away, their silence carved deeper than his shouting. The door closed behind me with a quiet click, the kind that sounds like an ending. Dinner passed in silence, awkward, heavy, pretending the driveway scene had never happened. Later I sat alone in my bedroom.
Modest didn't begin to describe it. A single bed, a small desk, a dresser, older than my daughter.
8 years I'd lived in this room, and it hadn't changed once.
Why would it?
Pensioners don't redecorate. Downstairs I could hear them murmuring, low, deliberate, my name slipping through their conversation like a ghost.
I didn't need to catch the words.
I already knew. I opened my laptop. The glow lit the room in a soft blue haze. My fingers moved automatically, username, password, 2-factor code, the routine of secrecy I'd practiced for 15 years. Then the numbers appeared on the screen, steady, untouched, undeniable. Investment portfolio, $1,427,394. The construction supply company I'd built from the ground up, sold it a year after my wife passed. I'd invested carefully, lived off my pension, never touched the core funds. I told myself it was about privacy, about wanting to be valued for who I was, not for the size of my wallet. But staring at those numbers now, I realized the truth.
I hadn't been preserving authenticity. I'd been preparing.
For this, I could still feel the heat from the driveway, the sting of neighbors watching, Roxana's voice begging me not to provoke him, as if I was the problem. Earl's sneer calling me a burden. They thought I was nothing, an aging man taking up space, tolerated out of obligation. I closed the laptop slowly, fingers resting on the lid. What I felt wasn't anger.
Anger is noisy, reckless.
This was colder, cleaner, my jaw set, my spine straightened. I looked at the door to my room, inside my house, the one with my name on the deed. They'd forgotten that detail. Fine. Let them. If they wanted to see nothing, I'd show them what nothing could do. I was already dressed when dawn crept across the blinds. Sleep had been impossible. My thoughts ran like gears, clicking, tightening, assembling. Earl came down first, barefoot, scratching his stomach, moving through the kitchen with the swagger of ownership. Roxana followed, hair pulled back, quiet and domestic. They moved around my kitchen like it was theirs. The sight felt surgical, sharp and cold. I sipped my coffee from the archway.
They didn't notice me at first.
Roxana cracked eggs into a pan. Earl scrolled lazily on his phone, the picture of comfort. "We need to talk about your dad," Earl said, not bothering to lower his voice.
I know, Roxana replied, stirring.
"It's awkward. Awkward," Earl scoffed. "He doesn't get it. He's living in our house now. The rules need to be clear." "Right," she said softly. "He has to understand how things work." How things work. The phrase hit like a slap. I stepped forward. "My house," I said evenly. "The deed's still in my name. Reuben Watson."
That hasn't changed. Earl's smirk appeared instantly.
"For now, sure. But let's be real. Who's paying the bills here?"
Who keeps this place running? You're just
"Here, just here. Like a piece of furniture." Roxana's eyes flickered between us, but she said nothing.
Silence again, her favorite defense. I set my cup in the sink with calm precision. I have errands to run. Errands?
Earl raised an eyebrow. "Where?"
Out, I said. I'll be back later. Their confusion was almost satisfying.
They expected me to shout, to defend myself, to crumble again under their pity.
Instead, I gave them composure. I walked out the front door, no hurry, no anger.
Just control. The Camry's engine groaned to life, and for the first time in years, I felt sharper than the road beneath me. Not angry, focused. This wasn't about emotion anymore. It was about strategy. They'd built their lives on assuming I was powerless. It was time to remind them whose foundation they'd been standing on. The drive to the bank steadied me. Morning traffic slid by, sun already glaring off glass and metal, but inside I was calm, calculating. Scottsdale's streets looked different that morning, not hostile, just irrelevant. The bank stood at the corner of the plaza, all glass walls and cold air conditioning. Inside, the world smelled like money and confidence. "Good morning, Mr. Watson," Marcus Chen greeted me. We'd worked together over a decade. He knew me as the quiet retiree who never caused ripples. "Marcus," I said, "I want to make a large transfer for a vehicle purchase." His fingers hovered over the keyboard. "Of course."
What amount are we talking about?
420,000. A brief pause.
Barely noticeable, but I noticed.
"That's quite a vehicle," he said. "May I ask what kind?" "Something that makes a statement." He nodded, entering the numbers. Paperwork followed, signatures, verifications, confirmations, all mechanical.
All deliberate.
With every initial, every checkmark, the idea turned real. When I stepped outside, the Arizona heat hit like applause.
Not happiness, anticipation. I sat in my old sedan, a dented, faded Camry that smelled faintly of age, and looked at my reflection in the windshield.
The man who'd been dismissed, humiliated, treated like a burden. 3 days, I thought. 3 days and the world changes. They thought I was small. They'd forgotten what power looks like when it stops pretending. 3 days later, I stood beneath the bright lights of a Phoenix showroom, rows of polished machines lined up like trophies, the air thick with quiet wealth. Floor-to-ceiling glass bathed everything in sunlight, bouncing off chrome and marble. Each car gleamed like a promise. A salesman approached, his suit immaculate, smile professional. "Good morning, sir." Anything in particular catch your eye? I pointed. The Ghost, midnight blue, his grin deepened. Excellent choice. 2019 model, single owner, only 22,000 miles. Perfect condition. I'll take it, I said. He blinked. Would you like to discuss financing options? No financing. Wire transfer. 90 minutes later, I held the keys, heavy, elegant, the spirit of ecstasy glinting in the Arizona sun. Sliding into the driver's seat, I breathed in the scent of new leather. The engine started with a quiet hum, power wrapped in grace. The car didn't shout. It whispered authority. The highway back to Scottsdale felt like silk beneath the tires. I drove steady, watching the world blur past in golden dust. For 15 years I'd lived beneath my worth. Old clothes, old cars, a performance of modesty. I thought humility would keep me safe. It hadn't. 10 minutes from home, a red light stopped me. Beside me, a silver Honda Accord pulled up.
I glanced over, Earl staring at his phone, unaware. I tapped the horn twice. His head jerked up. His eyes found me. Then the car.
Then comprehension, confusion, recognition, shock, anger. All of it flickered across his face in seconds. I didn't say a word, didn't gesture. Just met his stare and let a quiet smile form. When the light turned green, I pressed the accelerator. The Rolls-Royce glided forward, smooth, effortless. In the mirror, I saw the Accord lurch as Earl slammed the gas in frustration. By the time I pulled into the driveway, my driveway, the air tasted sweeter. I parked the Ghost in full view, sunlight catching every curve of its paint, the kind of sight no one could ignore. I sat there for a moment, breathing it in. Then I stepped out, locked the car with a soft electronic click, and walked inside. 15 minutes later, I heard it, the roar of the Honda tearing up the street, tires screeching. The front door slammed open. Earl stood there, red-faced and shaking, pointing toward the driveway. Where did you get the money? Not what's that car, not congratulations.
Straight to suspicion.
Straight to greed. I set down my glass of water, met his eyes, and said evenly, I think it's time we had a real conversation, Earl. Roxana appeared in the doorway, still half in disbelief. What car? What's going on?
Earl's fists clenched at his sides, fury radiating from every muscle. He's been hiding money, acting broke while we paid for everything.
He paced like a trapped animal, voice cracking with accusation.
We covered groceries, bills, all of it, for 5 years, and he could have helped.
Roxana's eyes darted to me, hurt already forming.
Dad, you had money this whole time?
I set my water glass down, slow and steady. Sit down, both of you. If you want answers, you'll get them properly. Roxana obeyed first, folding her hands on the table. Earl stayed standing until the silence demanded he sit too. The power in the room shifted, subtle but absolute. 15 years ago, I began, I sold Watson's Supply Company. 30 years of work. Sale price, $2.8 million. After taxes and debts, just under $2 million left. I invested it carefully, bonds, dividend stocks, a few real estate holdings. Current value, about $1.4 million. Roxana's lips parted. Earl's face twisted from disbelief to fury. I never told anyone, I continued.
I wanted to know who valued me as family, not as a wallet. Earl scoffed.
Valued you? We carried you for years.
I cut him off, voice sharp.
You refused my help, remember? You lost your job at Canyon Logistics. You asked to move in temporarily. I offered to pay my share. You told me a real man provides for his family. You didn't need handouts from an old man. Roxana's eyes flicked toward him.
Memory betrayed her silence, so I didn't push, I said.
You needed pride.
I gave you peace.
But don't you dare pretend I took advantage. Earl's chair scraped harshly against the floor.
You lied by omission.
I reached into the kitchen drawer, pulled out a folder, and laid it flat on the table. The house deed, I said. Purchased outright in 1998. Sole owner, Reuben Watson.
Always has been, Earl's jaw tightened.
For now, there it was. The truth laid bare. Roxana's voice trembled. We thought, when you passed, the house would be yours, I finished.
You've been waiting for me to die. She flinched like the words struck her. No, I didn't, but she couldn't meet my eyes. Earl leaned forward, venom in his tone.
You're old.
It's natural to plan for the future.
You hoarded money, made us struggle. Struggle? I repeated. You live rent-free in a Scottsdale home. You pay a third of what anyone else would. You call that struggle? Earl's fury cracked into something darker.
You humiliated me.
Driving that car around like a trophy. You'll regret it, old man. It wasn't an outburst. It was a threat. Roxana stood, torn between us.
Dad, please, how could you let us think? She didn't finish.
They stormed out, their voices rising upstairs, angry, panicked. I stood alone in the kitchen, the silence now heavier but honest. The mask of family harmony was gone, finally stripped away. Through the window, the Rolls-Royce glimmered under the afternoon sun. Worth it? Yes, every bit. Because for the first time in years, they finally saw me. Morning crept in soft and grey. I hadn't truly slept, just drifted between thoughts and memories, looping through last night's argument. By 6, I gave up pretending. Something looked off through the window. The Rolls-Royce sat lower, leaning slightly to one side as if wounded. My stomach tightened. I dressed fast, jeans, shirt, shoes, no socks, and stepped into the quiet hallway. Their bedroom door was closed. Good, I wanted to see it first. Outside the air was cool, still damp with dew. The street slept under pale sunlight. But the damage was impossible to miss. All 4 tires slashed, deep cuts deliberate. Paint gouged and scratched along both sides, the hood, the trunk. Chaos until I reached the driver's door, where the scratches formed words. Old fool etched clean through the paint, down to bare metal. I clenched my fists, looked up and down the street, nothing. Curtains still drawn. No witnesses, no movement. Just the sound of my own breath. This wasn't random vandalism. It was personal.
Meant to sting.
Meant to send a message. I called the non-emergency police line. My voice stayed even, steady.
I need to report vandalism.
Property damage. High value, the dispatcher asked for details, timeframes, suspects.
Not yet, I said.
But I have cameras. Inside, I went straight to the security panel. Green lights active. But when I opened the playback timeline, my chest went cold.
Midnight to 6 a.m. blank.
Someone had turned the system off. What's going on? Earl's voice from the stairs. Sweatpants, tousled hair, false innocence. The cameras, I said, flatly. Disabled last night. Oh, right, he said too quickly. I was cleaning the lenses. Must have forgotten to reactivate. Convenient time to forget, I replied. The car was vandalized.
Tires cut, paint slashed.
The word fool carved into it. He froze.
Not shock, something smaller, meaner.
That's terrible, he said after a moment. Did you call the police? Roxana appeared behind him, clutching her robe.
Dad, what?
What happened? Her voice trembled, eyes wide.
Genuine, maybe, but there was guilt hiding under the fear. The car, I said simply. Someone destroyed it. Her hand covered her mouth. Oh, no.
Dad, I'm so sorry. 40 minutes later, a patrol car rolled up. An officer took photos, asked questions, scribbled notes. Then another man arrived, plain clothes, badge on his belt. Detective Harris, he was thorough. Sharp eyes, quiet tone. Mr. Watson, when did you purchase this car? 3 days ago, he raised an eyebrow. Quite new, expensive. I decided to enjoy my retirement, I said. He nodded, making notes.
Any disputes? Arguments recently?
I hesitated. Family tension. My daughter and son-in-law live with me.
There was a disagreement, Harris scribbled again.
I'll need to speak with them. Earl and Roxana came outside. Their performance was flawless, concerned, cooperative. They claimed they'd heard nothing, saw nothing. Earl repeated his story about cleaning cameras. Harris's expression didn't move, but I saw understanding flicker behind his eyes. So, he said finally, argument about money, new luxury car, cameras off, vandalism overnight. You can see how this looks, Earl stiffened. Are you accusing me? I'm observing circumstances, Harris replied calmly. When it ended, he told me the damage estimate I'd reported, $35,000, classified it as a felony. If you find out who did it, he said, handing me his card, call me directly. After the police left, the three of us stood by the car, silent. Except for the wind. I hope they catch whoever did this, Roxana said weakly. Yeah, Earl added, voice flat. Terrible thing. But in his eyes, behind that thin layer of sympathy, I saw it, the satisfaction of a man who thought he'd gotten even. He was wrong. This wasn't over. It was just evolving. I looked at the detective's card, then at Earl, and said quietly, yeah, I hope they do too. 2 days later, I gathered every piece of proof I owned into a leather folder. The deed from 1998, the police report, photos of the vandalism bank statements, even emails from years back about their temporary stay. My story was finally taking shape. Not revenge, not fury, but order. Thomas Brennan's office sat in North Scottsdale, polished glass and desert light. He specialized in property law and family disputes. Exactly the kind of man I needed. His receptionist led me into a wide corner office overlooking the city. Brennan rose from behind his desk, silver hair, perfect posture, handshake, firm and calm. Mr. Watson, please sit. I understand you've got a situation. I placed the folder on his desk. Family. 5 years ago, my daughter and her husband moved in after he lost his job. It was meant to be temporary.
I agreed because family helps family.
He found work 6 months later, but they never left, never contributed, never respected the arrangement. He listened without interruption, taking notes. Was there a written agreement? No, only a conversation over dinner. Roxana's friend was present, could confirm it. He nodded, writing. And now? They treat me like a guest in my own house. My car was vandalized 3 nights ago.
I suspect my son-in-law.
Cameras were conveniently off. I handed him the photos, the report, everything. He studied them carefully, jaw tightening slightly. Convenient indeed, Mr. Watson, to be direct. You have a strong position. Arizona law sides clearly with the property owner. Family or not, guests without a lease can be evicted once notice is properly served. What's the process?
I asked. He outlined it cleanly.
Step 1. A formal notice letter stating the violation of verbal agreements and requiring them to contribute or vacate within 30 days. Step 2. Update your will since they're expecting inheritance. Step 3. Document every instance of hostility. Step 4. File formal eviction if they don't leave voluntarily. How long? If they fight it, maybe 2 to 3 months. If not, 30 days, I nodded. Proceed, he paused. Before we move forward, what does your current will say?
Everything goes to my daughter. He studied me for a moment.
Would you like to change that? The question hit harder than expected. Roxana had watched Earl humiliate me.
Had stood by silent while he called me a burden. Yes, I said, finally.
90% to charity. 10 to her. Enough to show I wasn't cruel. But clear enough she understands why. Brennan's expression softened. That's wise. Shows sound mind, prevents challenges. We spent the next half hour on details. He took copies of everything. Names, dates, witnesses. I signed the retainer check. $6,500. Worth every cent. When I left his office, the Arizona sun hit my face, warm and bright. For the first time in weeks, I felt something close to peace. This wasn't vengeance. This was reclamation. The machine of justice had begun to move. Slowly, deliberately, under my control. A week later, I checked the mailbox beneath the scorching midday sun. Bills.
Ads, a credit card offer, and 1 certified envelope.
The return address read Marshall and Associates, not Brennan's firm. Inside my room, I slit it open with care.
Legal letterhead. Cold, confident tone.
My pulse quickened as I read. Earl had hired a lawyer. The letter claimed that he and Roxana had provided years of unpaid care and household support for an elderly relative. Me. It demanded $180,000 in fair compensation, supposedly a discount from the market rate for in-home caregiving. I laughed once, short and bitter. Then came the darker part. The letter implied that my recent extravagant purchase, but the Rolls-Royce, raised concerns regarding cognitive capacity and sound financial judgment. In other words, they were threatening to challenge my sanity, a preemptive strike. Clever but clumsy. I scanned the letter, sent it to Brennan immediately. 20 minutes later, my phone rang.
I got it, he said.
They overplayed their hand. There's no contract, no evidence of care, no basis for that figure. And as for capacity, Arizona requires medical proof, not gossip. So we ignore it? Completely, he replied. We move forward with your original notice.
Their bluff just shows they're scared.
It'll only help us later. Relief came quietly, like air returning to a deflated lung. That evening, dinner was silent again. 3 people pretending not to live in the same war zone.
Afterward, a soft knock on my bedroom door. Dad, can we talk, Roxana?
Her voice small, cracking slightly. I hesitated, then said, "Come in." She sat on the edge of the bed, hands clasped tight. Her eyes were red, from tears or strategy I couldn't tell.
I know you got the letter, she whispered.
Earl went too far. But please, we're family.
Lawyers and eviction notices.
This isn't right.
Can't we find a compromise?
The word hung in the air, compromise, like something sour. What compromise, Roxana?
I asked evenly.
I give up my home, my dignity, my right to peace, so he can feel like a man under my roof.
It's not like that, she said quickly.
He's just stressed, about money, about work. And then you bought that car, and it looked like you'd been hiding things. You didn't trust us. I shook my head slowly. I didn't hide anything. You assumed. 'Cause I lived simply, you believed I had nothing.
That's on you, her composure cracked.
We thought, when you passed.
The house would be yours, I finished for her.
But you planned for it. She stared at the floor, voice small. You changed your will, didn't you? I didn't answer directly. You made your choice 5 years ago, Roxana?
Every time Earl insulted me and you said nothing, you chose his comfort over my respect. Tears slipped down her cheeks. I do love you, Dad. Then you should have acted like it mattered. She stood, wiping her eyes.
He won't leave without a fight. I know, I said. Her hand lingered on the doorknob.
I'm sorry.
For what it's worth. Then she was gone. The silence that followed felt heavier than her words. For a brief moment I almost wished it could all rewind, before pride, before hurt. But I knew better. This wasn't about family anymore. It was about self-respect. My phone buzzed. A text from Brennan, notice to quit drafted. Sheriff's service scheduled for Friday morning.
Are you ready?
I typed one word, yes, and pressed send. The countdown had begun. Friday arrived bright and cruel. By noon, the Arizona heat shimmered on the asphalt outside my house. I sat at the kitchen table, coffee cooling beside me, when the Maricopa County Sheriff's cruiser pulled to the curb. A uniformed deputy stepped out, clipboard in one hand, a manila envelope in the other. Calm, professional. The rhythm of someone who'd done this hundreds of times. I opened the door before he could knock. Mr. Watson? Yes. I have a legal document for service. He checked his clipboard. For Earl Thompson or Roxana Watson Thompson. My daughter's home, I said.
I'll get her. Roxana appeared at the top of the stairs, drawn by voices.
When her eyes met the deputy's uniform, color drained from her face. Ma'am, the deputy said gently, I need to serve you this notice. He handed her the envelope. Please read it carefully. Have a good day. He turned, walked back to his cruiser, and drove away.
90 seconds.
That's all it took to change everything. Roxana stood frozen in the entryway, clutching the envelope as though it might explode.
Open it, I said quietly. She tore it open, scanned the first page, then gasped. You're evicting us.
I'm ending an arrangement that stopped working years ago. You have 30 days. Her fingers trembled as she fumbled for her phone. 30 minutes later, tires screamed into the driveway.
Earl burst through the door, still in his work clothes, red-faced and furious, waving a crumpled printout. "What the hell is this?"
He shouted. Exactly what it says, I replied. Notice to quit.
30 days. You can't just throw us out. This is our home.
It's my home, I said evenly. You've been guests, and guests have overstayed their welcome. Earl's hands crushed the papers in his grip. We'll fight this. We'll take you to court. Are you free to try? I said.
But you're not tenants.
You have no lease, no rent receipts.
Arizona law is clear. He opened his mouth to argue, but the words fell apart as he read further.
The legal phrasing was airtight. Violations of verbal agreements, creation of a hostile environment, suspected involvement in property damage. You're accusing us of vandalism? He snapped. I'm stating the detective's report mentions suspicious access.
Nothing more. Earl's fury faltered, replaced by calculation.
You know rent prices out there? First month, last month, deposit, $6,000 easy.
You're setting us up to fail. That, I said, is not my problem. Roxana's voice broke. Dad, please.
We'll change. We'll pay rent, help out, whatever you want. Don't do this. I looked at her, my only child, eyes red and desperate, and felt the faint sting of pity. But then I remembered the driveway, the humiliation, the laughter I'd heard through closed doors. No, I said simply, this is over. Earl's face twisted into something between rage and disbelief. You're choosing pride over family. When you're old and alone in that big house, you'll regret this. I already was alone, I said, even while you lived here. The difference is, Matt, now I'll be alone with dignity. He had no answer. He turned sharply toward the stairs.
30 days.
We'll be gone. Don't expect us to come back. Roxana lingered a moment longer. Her voice cracked.
Oh, I'm sorry, Dad.
But I have to go with him. I know, I said quietly. You made that choice a long time ago. She followed him upstairs. Doors slammed. Voices rose, muffled but angry. I stood in the kitchen, the smell of cold coffee and silence thick around me. The house already felt lighter, emptier, mine again. I walked to the front window and watched the street where the deputy's cruiser had been moments before. The strike had landed clean. Now came the waiting. 30 days until my house was mine again, or until they tried one last desperate move, and I already knew which way they'd go. 3 tense weeks crawled by after the notice landed. The air inside the house turned icy. We passed each other in silence, ghosts drifting through the same space. Earl's glare followed me down hallways. Roxana's eyes were rimmed red from crying behind closed doors. I documented everything, every small slight, every broken promise, every moment of hostility. The log was thick now, a ledger of years condensed into pages of proof. 5 days before the deadline, a certified letter arrived, this time from Earl's attorney. They were contesting the eviction, claiming oral tenancy rights after 5 years of residence. Predictable, Brennan called that evening. Expected move. They're stalling.
The hearing's set for the deadline day.
Perfect timing, shows the judge they're dragging their feet. The morning of the hearing, I dressed carefully, dark slacks, a clean shirt, a sports coat, calm, controlled, done with being the man they pushed around. The Maricopa County Superior Court building rose in concrete and glass, sterile, serious. Brennan met me outside the courtroom, his folders thick, his confidence steady. "Ready?" he asked. "More than ready," I said. Inside, the courtroom smelled faintly of polish and old air. The judge, a woman in her 60s with sharp grey eyes, sat at the bench. Across the aisle, Earl and Roxana sat stiffly beside a young attorney in a rumpled suit. He looked nervous. They didn't. They looked cornered. The bailiff called the case Watson versus Earl and Roxana Thompson, unlawful detainer action. Earl's attorney stood first, voice smooth but desperate. Your Honor, my clients have resided at the property for 5 years under an implied agreement for permanent housing. They've provided emotional and practical support to Mr. Watson, who is elderly. To revoke permission without cause is unjust. The judge listened, unimpressed. Then Brennan rose. His voice was steady, surgical. He presented the deed with my sole ownership. Then the original email exchange, temporary stay while you get back on your feet and help with maintenance. Then my sworn testimony that I'd offered to pay my share of expenses and was refused. Then the photos of the vandalized Rolls-Royce. The police report noting suspicious circumstances. And finally, the recording. A 30-second clip played aloud in the courtroom. Earl's voice filled the room.
Unmistakable. The old man doesn't get it.
This is our house now. We're just waiting him out. The judge's pen paused mid-stroke. Earl's face drained of colour. Roxana's hands shook in her lap. Mr. Earl, the judge said coldly, you claim to have maintained the home.
What exactly did you contribute?
He stammered. Well, we lived there, helped out, general things. Be specific, she pressed. Yard work, repairs, cleaning?
Roxana cooked sometimes. I handled stuff. The judge's expression didn't change, but her silence was devastating. Brennan stepped forward again.
Your Honor, this is not tenancy. It's occupancy. There's no rent, no lease, no legal claim. My client provided shelter. They responded with hostility and property damage. He seeks only to reclaim his home. The judge glanced through her notes, her tone final and cold. This case is clear. Mr. Watson owns the property outright. The respondents are guests, not tenants. They failed to meet verbal agreements and created a hostile environment. The notice to quit was validly served. A gavel came down crisp and decisive. Eviction upheld. You have 30 days to vacate. Failure to do so will result in forcible removal. Earl shot to his feet, voice breaking.
This isn't fair.
We'll pay rent.
You sign anything? Please. The judge raised her hand.
Mr. Watson is under no obligation to continue housing you. This hearing is concluded. The sound of the gavel echoed again. The final punctuation on 5 long years. Outside, under the burning sun, Brennan smiled faintly. Clean victory.
About as definitive as they come, I nodded.
My body felt lighter, emptied of weeks of tension. What happens if they don't leave? Then the sheriff comes. But they won't risk it. They know they've lost. In the parking lot, I saw them by their car, arguing, small and desperate.
Roxana cried openly now.
Earl's gestures were wild, helpless. Their world had shrunk in a single morning. I got into my sedan and drove away. The freeway opened wide ahead, the wind hot but clean. For the first time in 5 years, the air tasted like peace. The 30 days passed quietly, too quietly. No shouting, no slamming doors, no tense dinners, just silence, the kind that feels like waiting for a storm. Each day, I watched subtle changes around the house. Boxes appeared in corners, then disappeared. Roxana's car was gone more often, returning late, headlights dim. She avoided my eyes, polite but distant.
Earl, though, he couldn't resist his petty victories.
He left lights on, doors ajar, dirty dishes in the sink.
Little reminders that he was still there.
Still clinging to the illusion of control. I ignored every one of them. The night before their deadline, I stood in the hallway, listening. Muffled arguments behind their door. Whispers, sharp with panic.
I caught fragments. Deposit. Storage. Too late.
Good. Reality was setting in. Morning came golden and cloudless. Moving day. At 9 sharp, a white rental truck pulled up to the curb. 2 movers climbed out, glancing awkwardly at the house before knocking. Earl opened the door, already sweating, voice low and brittle. Roxana trailed behind, her expression somewhere between guilt and exhaustion. Boxes stacked quickly. Kitchenware, clothes, random things I'd forgotten they even owned. Each item that left made the house feel lighter. Roxana approached me near the doorway, hesitant.
Dad, we found an apartment.
Small, but it'll do, I nodded. Good, she swallowed hard. I wanted to say thank you for letting us stay this long.
And I'm sorry for everything. Her words trembled, honest this time.
The weight of them softened something in me, just a little.
I believe you, I said quietly.
But don't waste your apology if you're going back to the same kind of life. She looked down.
I just want peace. Then earn it, I said. Earl stepped in before the silence could settle. We're leaving, old man.
You got what you wanted. I studied him for a long moment. No, well, I got what I earned. There's a difference. He smirked, but it didn't reach his eyes. Enjoy your empty house. I will, I said. By afternoon, the truck was packed. The driveway stood clear under the bright Arizona sun. Roxana hugged me once, tight, trembling, full of words she didn't say. Then she got into the passenger seat beside her husband. The truck rolled away. For a long time, I stood there, watching the dust trail fade into the horizon until the street was empty again. Inside, the house was still, quiet in a way it hadn't been for years. No echo of arguments, no slammed doors, no tension humming through the walls. Just the ticking of the old clock in the living room and the faint hum of the refrigerator. I walked through each room slowly, touching the walls, the banister, the old photographs that had hung there since before Roxana married. In the kitchen, sunlight spilled across the counter. I poured myself a drink, cold water, nothing more, and sat down at the table that had witnessed every battle, and I smiled, not out of triumph, but peace. The house finally breathed again. Out the window, the Rolls-Royce shimmered in the driveway, repaired, flawless, like the life I'd rebuilt, piece by piece. This wasn't victory. It was balance restored. I raised the glass slightly toward the empty chairs and said softly, "To new beginnings." Evening settled slow and golden over Scottsdale. The desert sky burned orange at the edges, fading into violet as the sun sank behind the mountain. The house, once noisy and heavy with tension, now hummed with quiet, honest quiet. I sat on the back porch, the same spot where I'd once watched Earl grilling steaks, pretending to own what he never built. Now it was just me, a glass of sweet tea, and the cicadas humming their slow song of peace. It felt strange, this stillness. For years I'd imagined solitude as loneliness, the echo of empty halls, the weight of silence. But sitting there, I realized I wasn't lonely at all.
I was free from manipulation, free from guilt.
Free from the quiet disrespect I'd let grow like mold in my own home. Sometimes love makes you blind. You convince yourself that patience is kindness, that silence is strength. But there's a fine line between grace and surrender, and crossing it costs you pieces of yourself you never get back. I'd finally stopped crossing it. A warm breeze rustled through the mesquite trees, carrying the faint smell of desert dust and evening rain. I looked out at the Rolls-Royce gleaming in the driveway, reflecting the fading light, not as a symbol of wealth, but of recovery,
of what it means to reclaim what's yours. My phone buzzed once, a message from Roxana. "We moved in today.
Small place, but cozy. I'll call soon.
Love you." I stared at the words for a long moment, then typed a simple reply. "Proud of you."
Take care. Then I set the phone down and let the quiet return. Inside, the clock chimed 7. The house echoed it back softly, like a heartbeat finding its rhythm again.
I thought of my wife, of how she'd built this home with me, how she'd hated conflict, how she would have smiled to see peace return at last. I raised my glass to the twilight sky.
"To you, Margaret," I said quietly, "and to endings that finally make sense." The night deepened. Stars began to blink into place, steady and calm. I leaned back in my chair, the sound of crickets rising like applause. Justice wasn't loud. It didn't need to be. Sometimes it was just silence and the freedom to breathe again. Before we go, if you enjoyed this story, make sure to subscribe for more real-life tales of karma, justice, and redemption. Drop a comment below. What would you have done in Ruben's place? Thanks for watching. Until next time, stay kind, stay strong, and never let anyone make you feel small in your own home.